Hey guys, this is Aziz and it is tech time. Today I'm going to show you how to use if statements and switch statements also at the same time, and how to use a .add function in string. So let's go ahead and not make this too long. Let's start the video and let's launch our Visual Studio from the start, and here it is, Microsoft Visual Studio. After we have launched it, let's just make a new project by going to empty project, and I'm going to name mine if and switch and press OK. So let's go ahead and create our main by right clicking on source files, add new item, and then going to C++ file, creating it, calling it main just because that's easier and it is main. Let's go ahead and use a skeleton. For this time I'm going to show you how to edit the main so that you use a different file that has the text in it. So maybe you want to use the same skeleton that you always use without having to write it every time. So you have to click in the white page right here, then going to edit, and then going to insert file as text, click that, and then after that you can click on direct it to wherever you put your skeleton. In this case I'm going to use the previous tutorials one, member intro, and then double clicking in the member intro again. So basically the solution name is member intro, then you click the name, then you'll find the name again, double click it, and then you'll find your CPP file right in there. I click it and then open, and then I have it all right in here. You can also open text files, HTML, doesn't matter what it is as long as it has text in it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all the comments, and we'll go from there. If you don't have this file, you can download it from my previous tutorial, and if not, it's really easy to type and it will be put in the website for indiedevelopment.co. I found out that I shouldn't say indie, it's indie. So let's go ahead and start with the if. So what I'm going to show you as an example right here is what if you want to compare these three numbers, number 1, number 2, number 3, and we're going to use integers because it's also the same for doubles, for floats, and characters and strings. There are no differences between them at all. So what if you want to compare them? In your head you would say if number 1 is equal to number 2, or if number 1 is equal to number 3. So exactly what you said in your mind, you will type it. So let's go ahead and press 2 enters right here, because we will take the input and then compare them right here, then do the output. So do if, just exactly like you say it, and you'll see that it's highlighted in blue because it's a reserved word, and then put parentheses. Right here is the condition. Whatever inside the parentheses is the condition. The condition would be, in this case, num1 is equal to num2, and close the parentheses. After you close it, it's a function. If is a function, so you have to put enter and open the squirrely bracket, and then enter and close it. The reason for that is I want you to open and close it right away, so you don't have to remember to close it later on and have any errors. So you can see right away that these are talking to each other and you won't have any errors. And here the only problem you're going to have is because you put 1 equal. What this is going to do is going to set num1 equal to number 2. So if you put number 1 as 1 and number 2 you put inside it 5, number 1 will now equal 5 because you did number 1 equal number 2. What you'll need to actually do is do equal equal. That will compare them, not set them as, not reinitialize them. It will compare them. There's a difference. So let's go ahead and type right in here, what if number 1 is equal to number 2? Then we will display cout, as we said before, to double less thans, and then double quote and say number 1 is equal to number 2, and double quotes, and then put an end line right in here, semicolon. What this is gonna do is gonna go ahead and compare number 1 to number 2, and if it is equal, then display it. So just to show you what is really happening, let's go ahead and debug. Start without debugging and launch it. Then it will ask us to input number 1 because it's right here. We input 1, and then for number 2 we will put number 1 again. For number 3 we will put 2 because it doesn't matter. So it went ahead and did, is number 1 equal to number 2? 1 and 1, they are equal, so go ahead inside it and then go do cout number 1 is equal to number 2, and then it displayed it. Go ahead and press enter. Some programmers might complain about me having 2 brackets in here, because you can do this. You can take off these brackets right here and you will be fine, because you only have one statement. The if statement will be fine if you only have one statement. But the reason I put it is for visual, so if I have to debug your code or another programmer sees it, you need to make sure that they are able to read your code easily. They won't struggle with it. And it have given me a few errors before, so I don't want to have to deal with it. Just put the brackets and avoid all these errors. So let's go ahead and continue. With what if you want to say, what if number 1 is equal to number 2, but what if it isn't? What if number 1 is equal to number 3? So you say if number 1 is equal to number 2, otherwise if number 1 is equal to number 2. Well, when you say it in your mind like that, you have to type else if. That is how you type it. So else if, and then you put the condition as before, number 1 this time is equal to number 3, and then close the condition, and then open, close the brackets, and then do cout, and then do number 1 is equal to number 3, and then put an end line right there. So it will check if number 1 is equal to number 2. If that's not true, it will not go in. It will skip it and say else if number 1 is equal to number 3. So it will check. So let's go ahead and debug it. Start without debugging, and we'll see what happens. So let's do 1, and then for number 2 is 2, and then number 3 has to be equal to number 1. Let's do 1, and then it will tell you number 1 is equal to number 3. It checked it and it made sure that it is right. So let's go ahead and press enter. So now what if you want to put another else if? You can go ahead and put another else if, and then you can do num1 is equal to let's say num4, which we don't have right now, but you can do that, and the rest is the same. But let's take this off. This is just an example of it. You have these two, and let's say at the end you will have to have the last resort, because in your mind, if you think if number 1 is equal to number 2, then they are equal. Else if number 1 is equal to number 3, then they are equal. But what if neither is true? Then you say, well, if neither is true, then it has to be not equal. So that has to be, the last resort would be else, just else by itself. And because it has to be not equal, you do not give it a condition. So you can just go ahead and press enter, put the 2 brackets, and then do cout number 1 is not equal to any other numbers, and do an end line, and that's it. So it will run. It will say, are they equal? No. Are they equal? No. Then it is this. That's it. It has to be this. Let's go ahead and run it. Start without debugging, and let's see what happens now. So number 1 is 1, number 2 is 2, number 3 is 3, and it would say number 1 is not equal to any other numbers. So let's go ahead and close it. Now what if you want to check is number 1 equal to all the other numbers? So what you're gonna have to do is add an AND. So you would logically, you have to think about this logically before you do anything. You would logically say if number 1 is equal to number 2 and number 1 is equal to number 3, so number 1 is equal to number 2 and it's not equal to number 3. So let's go ahead and copy this whole if, and Control C or right click, copy, and put 2 enters right here and then paste it. So let's change this back to else if. So we make sure that we have if, else if, else if, else. So in here we're going to create the new condition if it's equal to all of them. So let's take all this off and do number 1 is if number 1 is equal to number 2, and the AND is right here, double ANDs, not just one AND, and it's the sign, AND sign. And number 1 is equal to number 3. Basically what you did is just combine this one and put an AND sign between them right in here. And literally what you're saying is number 1 is equal to number 2 and it is equal to number 3. The program, the compiler, doesn't know what it is. For our heads we assign it with number 1, but for the compiler we have to tell it what number 1 is. It won't understand what it is. It doesn't understand it like that. So we have to tell it word by word. So let's go ahead and compile it. Debug, start without debugging, and let's see. Let's go ahead and type 1 1 1. For all of them are 1s. Number 1 is equal to number 2. That's just because we still have the cout saying number 1 is equal to number 2. Let's go ahead and close it and change that. Number 1 is equal to all other numbers. And let's go ahead and compile it again and type 1 1 1, and you will see number 1 is equal to all other numbers, and it is true. So let's go ahead and close it. Now I'll show you the errors that most people get, which is doing something like this. If you don't have to type this or do it while you're typing, just watch this. I will copy this and I will position it right under here, and this one would be an else if. And always remember, if comes first, because if you put else if before putting an if, it will say expected a statement, and that is an error. So go ahead and delete that. So you have to start with if, then else if, then at the end you have an else. You do not have to have an else, but if you need it, you can do that. But you can end with else if. So let's go ahead and compile that. Now what we're gonna do is do 1 1 1. It should tell us that all number 1 is equal to all numbers, but what it did is number 1 is equal to number 2. The reason for that is the positioning of this is wrong. What the program did is it said if number 1 is equal to number 2, is it? Well, 1 and 1 are equal, so go ahead and go inside this and do cout number 1 is equal to number 2. Then it saw this bracket and said, okay, well, I'm done because there's an else if, but I already finished. This one is true. I don't care if this is true. This one is true. So I'll get out and then do displays and then do system pause. That's why you have to think about the positioning of your if and else if statement. Let's go ahead and close it and return it back where it was, which was right in here, and it was an if statement, and this one is an else if. I'll take the random ones. Now one of the other errors that you might face is doing this 1 equals. 1 equals will not be okay, so I'll show you what will happen right now. So let's say we put 1 equals right here, and let's go ahead and debug start without debugging, and what you're gonna do is input 1 5 and 3. what happened here is the one that we input right here, it became a 0. So you will have many different errors that will happen during the program because you set 1 equals right here. It should have set number 1 equal to number 2, but it didn't do that this time. It did something else. So you cannot do that. But instead it did number 1 is not equal to any other number, which is true because it's a 0. 0 is not equal to any other number. So let's go ahead and close it and return back the double equals. Now with this you can use denum, and here you can use fnum, which is a float, and double, and character, and string. You can use it in all of these, it doesn't matter, and it will work just fine because the if, it takes everything. I also wanted to introduce you to the or instead of the and right in here. So we can do right in here, let's put an enter right after the first one, and we would type else if as usual and open, and then num1 is equal to num2, but instead of and we will do or num1 is equal to num3 and close the parentheses. This would test if number 1 is equal to either number 2 or number 3. So if that is true, open the bracket and close it right under here, right on line 40, put it on 41, and you will be done with that one. And here it's complaining about that because this is inside it. This code started the else if, and then we open the bracket and this is inside it, so there it doesn't see this one, so we have to take that off. And the formatting is a little bit wrong. To fix that, and many people have asked me about this, do Control A and it will select the whole thing, or you can do right click and let's see if there is a Control A. There isn't, it doesn't seem like it, so do Control A to select all and go ahead on edit and then go to advanced, and then you have the first one is format selection. It will format everything for you. Or you can do Control K then Control F, which is what works. So click that and look at this, it changed from its position right here to right here. I will show you again. See how it is right here. I will do Control A then Control K, and then it says Control K was pressed, waiting for second key of chord, and then Control F, and it moves it right to the right, and it takes care of any spaces so you don't have any empty spaces. Now you have it formatted right. What will happen now in the code is if num1 is equal to both of them, then do this. Else if num1 is equal to either num2 or num3, then go inside and then check if number 1 is equal to number 2 or is it equal to number 3. Check specifically which one it is. So I'm going to go ahead and use the debugger to show you exactly what the code is doing. I'm going to put a dot right here and then start debugging, and then we're going to go inside it and see. So let's input 1 and then let's do 2 and then let's do 1 again, so it will go all the way to the end. So now we are right here. It went through this and it said nope, that's false. It went through here and now it's checking to see. So I'm going to press step over, which is F10. So click that. The reason I use that and not step into, because step into might it will open files by Microsoft and it's too much. I don't want to open that. So go ahead and step over. Now it entered inside it. We're in line 32, and line 32 is inside this if statement. So it meant that this is a true statement. One of them is equal to number 1, and if you highlight one of them, it will tell you number 1 is equal to 1. Or you can look at them right here, every one of them, and it's showing number 1 is 1, number 2 is 2, and number 3 is equal to 1. So let's go ahead and look. The arrow is right here, so let's go ahead and press step over. So it checked and said nope, this is false, and it went right here. Let's see if it checks false or goes inside. So now it's on line 39 and it said it's true, so it went inside it. Now it will display that, and to show you that, I will drag this down and I will put it on this side and drag this on the side and put it right here. So step over and it displayed number 1 is equal to number 3. It displayed this. Then it gets out and it doesn't check for the else. It just does displaying of the numbers, and then it does system pause. And then we're done with the code. So let's go ahead and stop it from stop debugging. And let's close this and let's open it. Alright, so we have learned the if and else if statements. We know how to use it, and we can use any of these types right inside them and it won't be a problem. Just make sure you use double equals and double ors. This or, to type it, is shift and then the key above the enter. Do double of it and then you'll be fine. So now I'll introduce you to something else, which is the switch statement. So what I'm going to do is open a whole I think the best idea to teach you about it is by creating a whole new solution. So I'm going to go ahead and save this one and then minimize it and open a new Visual Studio right here, and let's create a new project and go to empty project and do switch statement and go ahead and press OK. Now we have a new one. Let's create main, right click, add new item, and then go to C++ file, then right in here type main and add. Now we have this. Let's go ahead and edit it by using what we have used previously. Go into edit, insert file as text, and then go ahead and go to wherever you put it. It's right here, and we have that. Let's take off the comments. Okay, so now we can go ahead and take two of these off. We will not need them. We will just need number 1. So let's put 2 enters, and now we're going to start with the switch statements. In here, the switch statement, you can type it as switch, and to basically do the same job as an if statement. So when you notice that you have 4 or more if statements, start using switch. It's much neater, much smaller, much thinner. It will be easier for you to use switch than if, but only if you have a few of if statements. So let's go ahead and put the condition. It's highlighted in blue as usual, and then put the condition right here, open the parentheses, and the condition is, it does not use ands, it does not use ors, it does not use equals, it does not use any of that. What you do in the condition right here is put num1. It really isn't a condition, it's just you putting num, and you will open the bracket and close it and put an enter right here, and then you will tell it what it will do here. So basically what will happen is it switches and then looks at number 1. Okay, so I have number 1. What do I do with it? Now it's gonna throw it somewhere. So to catch it, we do like case. In case it is a 1, do colon, and then put enter, and then type your code here. So if it is a 1, cout you entered number 1, and then put a end line. And I'm a perfectionist about this, so you've entered number 1, and then put an enter. Now what this will do is look at number 1 and say, what is inside number 1? What did the user input? So if he entered 1, then we will tell him that he entered 1. So we will do another case right here, case he entered number 2, colon, put an enter, cout you've entered number 2, and end line. So let's let's do it again with case 3 and do cout you've entered number 3 and end line. Now for this it will not catch anything higher or less than or equal to, so you have to make sure you're precise about it. And here you have to say which number it is. But what if you want to say, what if they enter any other number than 1, 2, 3? You want to make sure the user enters only these numbers. So no problem, we can do that too. You can do default. Default is if it's anything else other than what you've said in there, do colon and do cout and you've entered the wrong number and end line as usual. And the default, it won't say 1, 2, 3 or anything, it's just a default because it won't need a number. It will just say if it's none of these, I will catch it and I will tell it what to do. So let's go ahead and compile this and we will get a problem right here, and I did it on purpose to show you what is going to happen. So let's go ahead and debug, start without debugging, and it's still saying number 1, so that's good. Let's go ahead and type 1. See what happened right here? It said you've entered number 1, which is correct, but then it went ahead and said you've entered number 2, number 3, you've entered a wrong number, and the 100 is just because number 1 is 1 and we have not played with number 2 or 3. The reason for that is because right in here we don't have something to tell it to stop. So what happened is in here, so right in here we'll have to tell it to stop. But the reason why it went through, because it said case it is 1, then output you've entered number 1, and it didn't stop right here, so it went to case number 2 and outputted this, and then so on with the rest of it, which is not wrong with the compiler. We just have to tell it to stop. So let's go ahead and stop this and put a stop to it. So put an enter right here and put a break. That will break it, and put a semicolon. You can use the breaks inside for loops, loops which I will introduce to you later, and other things like that, but in this case it will stop for the switch statement. So let's go ahead and copy that and put it right here too, and right at the end of this. But for the default we don't have to do it because it's at the end, so it will just stop right in here. So we don't have to do it unless we put default somewhere else. So to see that why we put this in here is because it's visually better. You can see it every time. You know that there's a break right here. You won't miss it. You will make sure that it is formatted right and put in the right position. So let's run it this time and see what happens. Start without debugging, and right in here let's input a number 2 to see did it jump over it. You've entered number 2. This time it went inside and then check this one and then stop. To show you in the debugging mode, go ahead and press anything, and then I'm going to put a red mark right here to stop it right here, and then put that, and it asked me for number 1. I will input number 3 to check number 3 now. And what we will do here is go ahead and press this step over. So it did go inside and it checked. When you highlight it, it would say num1 is 3. So inside num1 you will see that it will go to the case for 3 because it's a 3. It didn't go to case 1, it didn't go to case 2 because they are not 3s. This one is a 3, this one is the one that caught it. It went ahead to the functions, to whatever the code is right here, and it did it. So in here you don't have to actually do a bracket, because it will do whatever it sees right after it. Even as we said before, when it didn't have breaks, it did case 2, case 3. So that's what it would do. It would, if we put a cout in here, it would do it too, so we don't have to have brackets like we do in the if statement. So let's go ahead and do step over, and it will see the break, and then it will get out of the switch. It won't touch the default, and then it will display everything else, and it will be done. You've entered number 3. As we mentioned before, it's right. So stop debugging. Now what if you want to do number, let's say 5 to 10? Let's do that. So go ahead and do case 5 and close it, and then do case 10, or let's do instead case 6, case 7, and we can do them one by the other like this, because it won't matter, because we're doing all of them together. Case 8, case 9, case 10, and list them one by the other. That's why cases are not exactly the best thing to do, but they do the job better than if statements in some cases. So in case it's any of them, then you type your code right here, which is cout you've entered a number between 5 and 10, and then close it. And let's go ahead and put an end line and close it. And then now it will go to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And because there are no breaks between them, it will just go through all of them and then do this. And then we can put a break right in here, semicolon, and then let's run it. Debug, start without debugging. And let's see what happens right in here. So let's input a 7. And what it did is you've entered a number between 5 and 10, which is true, because if you input a 5, it will go 5, and then it will go through all these cases and then output this. If you enter a 6, same thing, 7, 8, 9, 10. Otherwise default will catch it. If it's less than that, a 3 would catch it. If it's a 4, it's not mentioned in here, so default will catch it. And don't forget the breaks. You always have to use the breaks. So let's go ahead and comment this out by using this comment right here. And this time what I will do is introduce you to something else, which is the characters in the switch, because it's just a little bit different. What I'll do is I will copy this code that we did for num1, and then copy it and then post it right here. So for this, let's copy this one too and keep it with this one and comment it out right here. So we have a whole input and switch statement for characters by itself. And let's do letter 1. So let's input letter 1, and let's use letter 1 right in here. You've entered letter A, let's say, in here instead of 1. And for forgot the double quotes right here. And for the second one, let's do letter B. And for the third one, it's letter C. And for all of these, let's go ahead and do, you've entered the letter between, what we'll do is between E and G, let's say. I had to sing the song to remember it, because that's the only way I remember it. So in here, letter 1, it's a character, it's not a number, so you cannot do numbers. And because characters are identified by their single quotes, we have to do single quotes right here. So let's go ahead and delete this number and do single quotes A single quotes, and this is case sensitive because A on the ASCII table is different than small letter A on the ASCII table, and we'll check that. So for the second one, we're checking for B, so let's go ahead and delete that and do B, right, like this, and then close it. For the third one, let's do the same thing, C. For this one, let's go ahead and take off all the cases, and we will do between E and G. So let's go ahead and do case E, and don't forget the colon, and then case F, and then case G, and then colon, and it will look, if it's an A, then letter A, B, B, C, C, and if it's E, F, G, then it's between these three. Default, you've entered the wrong letter right here. So let's go ahead and I will run it in a second. I will change these to output the right one, and let's change this one to say letter 1. So let's go ahead and compile it by Control F5, and it will ask us, please input letter 1. So if you input B, it will say input B. Let's go ahead and close it and compile again. And if you input the letter F, it will do the same thing between E and G. So the only difference really is just how you use it. The quotes right here, and for the numbers is just displaying the number, but you have to be precise with the floats and the doubles. That's the only difference. For strings, however, it is much different. So let's copy this again, and we will comment it out, and let's do a paste right here, and let's go ahead and highlight it, or not highlight it, let's change it to word 1 right here, and then let's change this output to word 1, and right here to word 1, because we're switching to word 1. But see that error? It will tell us no, we cannot do that. Expression must have integral or enum type. So to fix that error, it looks only at characters and numbers, so it cannot do strings. Strings basically are numbers. So what we do is a dot at. That's what we will do, and press enter, dot at, and then we would have to do at 0. We can do that by opening the parentheses, put a 0, close the parentheses, because this is a function. And the closest thing that I found on the internet for this to explain it better is this picture right here. The P stands for a position, and the dot at is looking at the position. This is basically a string of Karen, and the string inside it is a bunch of character at position 0, at position 1, at position 2, at position 3, at position 4, and so on. And to use the string inside the switch statement, we have to look at characters. So when we say strings dot at position 0, is we're looking at this position right here, and the size of it is obviously 5 right here. So if we say dot at 1, then 0, 1, and then if we say 2, 0, 1, 2, and so on, because we start counting from 0. And just to remember, strings is reference from here from c++.com. You have all the functions right here. For capacity, perhaps you can do size, dot length, and dot at, and operator plus, erase, replace, all of these functions for you. So let's go ahead and go back, and the dot at is using 0. For if we want to do a whole longer one, we would have to do a loop, and we're not there yet, so I'll introduce loops later. But for now, we can do dot at 0, so the first letter of every string will check right here, and we can keep this whole thing right here. So let's go ahead and compile it and do build my bad, debug, start without debugging. Go ahead and do that, and right in here, please input word 1. So let's go ahead and type my name, Azam, and it says you've entered letter 0, and the inputs are the outputs for integers are zeros. So let's go ahead and close it, and debug, start without debugging. So what if we entered Frank, and the F is right here, so it should say you've entered the letter between E and G. So go ahead and do that, and obviously it did that. You've entered the letter between E and G, so it looked at the first letter. So if we close it and do dot at position 1, so let's go ahead and compile it again, debug, start without debugging, and this time I will type let's find a name, it doesn't matter, FCK. So let's go ahead and close and enter, and you've entered the wrong letter because C is a small letter, so we have to do it with a capital letter. So that's one of the problems that happen even to me. So it's going to enter, and then build, start debug, start without debugging, and then go ahead and do FCK, all capitals, and press enter, and you will see you've entered letter C, and it caught it because it's a second letter. It's looking at the second letter now, and if I do 2, it will look at the third letter. So this is your introduction to switches with strings, switches with characters, and switches with numbers. I will comment all these codes out for you and put it under indiedevelopment.co, not .com. You'll be able to download both solutions for the switch and the if statements, and the code for if statements will be there. If I have mistaken on something or missed something, please let me know. I'll cover it, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you. And if just post the questions in the forums under C++, I'll respond to you as soon as possible. And please like and subscribe, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that I was clear with it. If there's anything that's clear, just let me know. Thanks.